What interested you in being the Director of Agriculture for the state of Ohio?
I think two main things. One, the opportunity to work for and to serve our great Governor, Mike DeWine. And second, to be able, in my capacity as Director, to promote our #1 industry through innovation and growth. You know, our Governor often says, it's not enough to just do your job, you've got to talk about it. So one of the things he has challenged me in our department is to really ramp up our communications. What are we doing as farmers? What are we doing as soil and water conservation experts to tell our story around the state? And in that regard, we've hired people in our department who are going to specialize in communicating these great things that we're doing across the state.
So we got to hear between Adam and the Governor a lot of the goals that the Governor has for the state. Within that, those parameters specific to the Department of Agriculture, what are some of the big things that you want to see ODA get done during your tenure?
Well, of course, the Governor's touched on water quality, and water quality is a top priority for ODA, as well as our two sister entities, EPA and ODNR. And to that end, Mary and Lori and I, with our teams, meet on a weekly basis for hours on end, trying to learn what we've done in the past, what we need to think about now, and how we go about in the future. As Governor DeWine said, everything I've done in my past, I think, enables me to be the right person and to do a good job for the Governor in his capacity. I worked for 30 years as a lawyer after graduating from Akron Law School, joined my dad in the practice of law in Marysville, and then in 2011 I was appointed to represent my district at the state of Ohio as a legislator. The #1 thing that I learned and that I honed my experiences were with the ability to build relationships, with the ability to reach out to people, to be approachable, and to have a meaningful conversation is perhaps the most valuable asset that any one of us can have in whatever job we do. So water quality, and you notice I don't use the word Lake Erie because water quality, nutrient management, and water management are issues that every person in all parts of our state should be concerned around. The Governor charged me with the challenge of traveling the state within a 3-month period to do what I call a listening tour. And so, together with my team, we divided the state up into 30 districts, usually combining 2 or 3 counties. And we hit the ground running 2 weeks ago with what I call these listening tours. An opportunity for people in that community, farmers, soil and water conservation experts, and just concerned citizens to sit at a table, talk about their histories, their perspectives, and their ideas for moving forward with water quality, because I believe that the best solutions come from people who are closest to the problem. Another top priority for us too is food safety. You know, if I had to describe the Department of Agriculture in one word, it would be safety. Safety for our consumers who eat our food, safety in our plants and our animals, and also in my department, safety in our amusement rides. So one of my jobs as the Director of Agriculture is to make sure that the rides we enjoy, that our children enjoy, and the county and state fairs are safe for all of us to use. Our budget this year will include additional expenses for inspectors in both meat and ride safety, and I look forward to having conversations with our wonderful legislators about the importance of those items in our budget.
So there was a sigh of relief around the room when you said ODA, EPA, and DNR are going to be working closely together. I think that's something that the farm community will embrace. How's that shaping up so far? How do you see that working among those 3 agencies panning out and improving itself?
Well, I'm glad you say that it's a sigh of relief, because quite honestly, I think there's been the opposite reaction. And I want to assure you that we all gather with an open mind, with one goal, and that's to come up with solutions that are shovel-ready based upon the data that we already have. When we have these meetings and we have this listening tour, I always start the conversation with these 4 questions. Do we have enough data to move forward with solving the water quality issues? If we do, how are we going to measure success? And number 3, and perhaps most critical to move forward, how do we create a message to the people of Ohio that what we are doing is going to have a significant effect over the years? Governor DeWine gave a very inspirational inaugural address, and he said two things that really struck me. First is his story about his cancer-ridden grandfather who planted daffodils one fall, knowing he would never live to see them bloom. At the end of his inaugural address, Governor DeWine said this: "Many of the things that I'm going to ask you to do, we will not see the results of over my term or even my lifetime. But I'm asking you to take this journey with me in faith with the best experts that we have to make a difference in our lives, in our children's lives, and our grandchildren's lives." And when he was talking about that, I thought he was talking to me, because that is the challenge that we have, to work together towards solutions that are going to have a long-lasting effect in Ohio.
I'd like to follow up on a topic that Adam raised with the governor, and that's regulations. We're all in agreement, sometimes they're necessary, but how they are enforced is what catches our attention and helps us support or perhaps push back a little bit. What's your vision of the proper way to enforce regulations in agricultural circles?
Well, thanks for that question. The second day that I was on the job, I gathered all our chiefs together, and I said, I want to see the letters that you send to our constituents about various permitting issues, violations, etc. Because I want to make sure that those letters are not punitive, but rather helpful. And the idea is, as Governor DeWine said, we are a regulatory agency, that's true, but we do not have to be punitive about it. My goal every day, whenever I meet someone, or a group, or a meeting like this, is for people to walk away feeling good about what we're doing and how we're treating them. I want every person who gets a letter from our department, every group that we come in contact with, to know that we respect them, we care about them, and that they're an integral part of our Ohio moving forward with our #1 industry.
So all of us in this room are very proud of what we do, and we want our fellow Ohioans to know what we do, and ODA traditionally has a role in that. Give us an idea of some of the things that ODA might be doing to help spread the agricultural gospel so that people know more about our industry and appreciate it.
One of the things you heard Governor DeWine talk about was shifting the focus of Jobs Ohio to a more rural aspect, and to telling through Jobs Ohio our story. You know, it's interesting that some of the state websites, as a matter of fact, when you go to look for a job, have very few listings in agriculture. In fact, there's one that just simply lists an opportunity in agriculture to be a farmer. But we all know that there are a multitude of careers that someone who loves agriculture could be in. We need welders, we need technicians, and we need to be selling our story about there are many, many things you can do in your career and be involved in agriculture. And so we need to be doing better about telling our story and telling people how we impact Ohio as farmers.
The governor mentioned that he has to turn a budget around pretty quickly. And you've only been on the job a relatively brief time. Have you had a chance to kind of look around and see what needs there might be at ODA, whether it's in certain areas of staffing or infrastructure or programming and such?
Yes, and I alluded to the fact that our budget for ODA will include increased amounts requested for more ride inspectors, more meat inspectors, and also a focus now on something that Governor DeWine alluded to. When I first took office, Governor DeWine said, "Dorothy, ODA has really never had a focus on preschool and elementary children's initiatives." And of course, our First Lady has an absolute passion for this. So we have hired persons, and we'll continue to hire people in our department who, for the first time, will have a focus on children's initiatives. Our First Lady is passionate about young people learning where their food comes from and how it's processed. And so, as the governor alluded to, the First Lady and I are going to be involved in a very exciting program called Fran's Farm. And it will be an interactive program where preschool and elementary age children can connect with our First Lady to understand where their food comes from. You know, the surveys show that the most common answer for preschool children and elementary children about where their food comes from is the grocery store. And so we as farmers need to do our job about educating children about that. The First Lady is very excited about pursuing this. We are excited about now having people on our staff that are expert and devoted to nothing but children's initiatives as it relates to agriculture. And I think this will be this in turn will bring new stakeholders that have never been part of the agriculture group to the agriculture society.
So I can just see here in about 50 years, one of your successors at ODA are going to say, how did you get started in agriculture? And she's going to say, I mucked stalls in Fran's farm. So
That'd be great.
great way to get into it. I'm sure it had to be hugely exciting when the governor asked you to serve in this position. Have you had a chance to just kind of contemplate what it means to be the first female in this job?
No. And I think Governor DeWine, throughout his career, whether it's been congressman, attorney general, or governor, has always been focused on getting the very best person for the job, without regard to gender or any other factor. And so it's important for me, and I take the most pride in the fact that he believes I was the very best person for this job for many other reasons other than my gender.
So you have a background as an attorney. Is that going to help maybe shape the way you view the job of Director of Agriculture? Is there going to be some influence there?
Well, I think just my ability, again, the number one takeaway from my years as a lawyer was the ability to build relationships, to solve problems through relationship building. That same experience and strength is also something very important as a legislator. You know, we talk about regulations, and the legislature has introduced a bill that would require all regulatory agencies, including mine, to reduce regulations by 30%. We are looking at our department as well, saying, what are we doing now that makes sense, and how do we go forward with that? But there's that certainly expresses the sentiment of a lot of people that there's a lot of unnecessary regulations. So we'll be looking very critically at that. The number one thing that I want to do is whatever contact we have with the Ohio people, I want it to be positive, I want it to be clear, and I just want people to leave the meeting feeling good about their relationship with our department and with our governor.
We know you have a tremendously busy schedule. The fact that you gave us your time today is highly appreciated. Folks, let's thank Director Pelanda.